Coffee hit my white suit like a slap. Cold, sticky, dark, and the intern camera raised smiled like the whole world was watching. "Relax," she said. "My husband is the CEO of this hospital." People turned toward me like I was already guilty. So I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even argue. I pulled out my phone and made one call. "Gavin," I said, calm as ice. "Come to the lobby. Right now. Your new wife just threw coffee on me. If you've ever been disrespected in public, if you've ever been underestimated, hit like, subscribe, and settle in. Because what happened next wasn't just revenge. It was justice. With receipts. My name is Mara Wells. I'm 34. And to the world, I'm the woman who has everything. But power doesn't feel like a crown. It feels like weight. A weight that sits on your chest when you're alone and tightens when people are smiling too much. Silvercrest Health was my father's life. A hospital network that grew from one small clinic into a system people trusted with their hearts, their children, their final chances. When he died, he didn't leave me rest. He left me a legacy and wolves in expensive suits, board members who talk about values while doing math in their heads, vendors who call you ma'am while testing your boundaries, and people who see a woman leading a billion-dollar institution and assume she must be protected by a man. I'm married to one of those men. Handsome, smooth, the kind of CEO who shines under lights. He can charm donors, shake hands like he's running for office, and make people laugh without ever saying anything real. In public. He's the face of Silvercrest. Behind closed doors, he was a man who let me carry what he couldn't. A month ago, I flew to Europe for medical equipment negotiations. Not because I wanted to. Because the hospital needed it, and Gavin didn't have the skill to handle it. He would have smiled, nodded, and signed the wrong deal just to get out of the room. So I went. 1 month of factories, meetings, contracts, and precise numbers. 1 month of jet lag, and quiet pressure. 1 month of lengthening. If I get this right, the hospital wins. And on the flight home, sitting in business class with my book open, I kept feeling that strange anxiety in my ribs. Not fear. Not panic. Just a quiet warning. Like my body knew something my mind wasn't ready to face. When we landed in New York, the air hit me heavy and humid. Summer in the city always smells like movement, hot pavement, metal, perfume, and impatience. My driver was waiting at VIP arrivals. Black car. Tinted windows. A smooth ride. He asked, "Home, Mrs. Wells?" And I surprised myself. "No," I said. "Take me to Silvercrest Central. Not the private entrance. Not the executive elevator. The front doors. Because I wanted to see the hospital the way everyone else saw it. Truth doesn't live in boardrooms. It lives in lobbies. Hallways, break rooms, and the way people behave when they think nobody important is watching." The lobby was alive. Announcements chimed overhead. Families stood in clusters, holding paperwork and hope. Nurses moved fast, focused, like every second mattered. The air smelled clean, antiseptic, controlled, but hospitals are never fully calm. They're always one moment away from chaos. And then I saw him. Dr. Julian Rise, chief of cardiology, on his knees on the marble floor. A man had collapsed near the elevators. Julian's hands were locked, pushing rhythmically, perfectly. His voice was calm but firm, clear as space. Glucose check. Warm sugar water now. People listened because competence has gravity. He was sweating. His jaw was clenched, and in his eyes there was nothing but focus. Not ego. Not performance. Just duty. Watching him, I felt pride rise in my chest. This was what my father built. A place where someone like Julian could still exist. a place where life mattered more than appearance. And then a voice tore through the lobby like glass cracking. "I told you to park my car in the shade." I turned. Near the revolving doors was a young woman. Bright makeup, too much confidence. A dress that didn't belong in a hospital. Pinned to her chest, a badge, Sloane Carter. Intern, and standing in front of her was Howard Briggs, our elderly valet. A Vietnam veteran. A man my father used to greet by name. Howard's hair was white. A place where life mattered more than appearance. And then a voice tore through the lobby like glass cracking. "I told you to park my car in the shade." I turned. Near the revolving doors was a young woman. Bright makeup, too much confidence. A dress that didn't belong in a hospital. Pinned to her chest, a badge, Sloane Carter. Intern, and standing in front of her was Howard Briggs, our elderly valet. A Vietnam veteran. A man my father used to greet by name. Howard's hair was white. His shoulders were slightly bowed, not because he was weak, because humiliation does that to good people. "I'm sorry, miss," Howard said, voice careful. "It's been busy ambulances." Sloane didn't listen. She stomped like a child. "You move like a turtle. How does someone like you even get hired here?" The words hit me harder than I expected. Because I've seen this kind of cruelty before. Cruelty that's loud because it wants an audience. And then she pulled out her phone, front camera, and her entire face changed like she flipped a switch. "Hey, besties," she chirped. "A little drama at work this morning." She smiled into the screen. I in the same lobby where a man had nearly died. Like the hospital was her content set. I looked at the clock. 9:12 a.m. Shift started at 8. Late. Breaking rules. Bullying an elder. Live streaming. And all I could think was, is this what Gavin allowed while I was gone? Gripped my suitcase handle and walked over. I placed a gentle hand on Howard's shoulder. He looked up and recognized me instantly. His eyes widened. He almost said my name. I put a finger to my lips. "Not yet." Then I turned to Sloane. "Excuse me," I said quietly, controlled. "This is a hospital, not a stage." She scanned me head to toe like I was trash in her way. To her. I looked like nobody. "And who are you?" She sneered. "Mind your business." "Put the phone away," I said. "You're late. You're filming. You're disturbing a public space." Her smile twisted, and she shoved the camera toward my face like a weapon. "Guys, look," she said to her audience. "Some bitter lady is harassing me. That's the thing about public humiliation. It doesn't just hurt you. It tries to rewrite reality in front of witnesses." I kept my voice low. "Put the phone down." Sloane rolled her eyes. "Oh, scary." Then she stepped into me. Not an accident. A shove dressed up as clumsiness. Her iced coffee tipped, and the cold, dark liquid poured down my white suit. It soaked through fabric, shocked my skin, dripped onto marble. The smell hit my nose immediately. Coffee. Sugar. Sticky. And my mind flashed to my father, handing me this suit once, smiling softly. One of his last gifts. Now it was stained by a girl who didn't even know my name. Sloane gasped theatrically, then screamed. "Oh my God. You pushed me." Phones lifted. People turned. And Sloane's tears became performance. "You're all witnesses." She cried. "This woman assaulted a healthcare worker." Then she leaned close, voice dropping into something sharp and private. "Apologize," she hissed. "Pay for it." "Do you know who my husband is?" Her lips curled. "My husband is Gavin Crown," she whispered. "The CEO. You mess with me and you'll be blacklisted." And in that moment, my body went completely still. Because there are insults. And then there are betrayals. I stared at her. And instead of screaming, I smiled. Not warm. Not friendly, a smile that says, "You don't understand what you just started." "You said Gavin Crown is your husband?" I asked softly. Sloane smirked. "That's right." And then a tall figure stepped between us. Dr. Julian Rise. His presence alone quieted the crowd. He looked at the coffee stain, and something flickered in his eyes, anger, controlled and sharp. Then he turned to Sloane. "Carter," he said, voice calm as steel. "Why are you causing a disturbance in the main lobby?" Sloane lifted her chin like she owned the air around her. "She attacked me," she snapped. "I'm recording for my safety." Julian didn't even glance at the phone. He didn't need to. He pointed to the large plaque mounted on the wall, hospital policy, printed in clean, bold letters. "Read it," he said. Sloane blinked, thrown off. "What?" Julian's voice lowered, read. "It." For a second, she hesitated. Because people like Sloane aren't used to being challenged. They're used to people backing down. Howard backing down. Patients' families backing down. Even junior staff backing down. But Julian didn't back down. He stood there like a wall. Sloane rolled her eyes and read a few words in a mocking tone. "Respect all patients and staff," she said sarcastically. Julian nodded once. "Now keep going." Sloane sighed dramatically. Professional attire must be maintained. Julian's gaze flicked over her dress and the way she was holding herself. Not with lust, with disgust. Sloane's cheeks reddened. Julian's voice stayed even. "Next." Sloane read again, louder now, like volume could cover embarrassment. "No filming in public areas without consent. No disruptive personal activities during work hours." Julian took a slow breath, then looked her in the eyes. "How many rules have you broken before 9:15? Sloane's mouth opened. Nothing came out at first. Then her ego kicked in. "I'm a special case," she snapped. Julian didn't flinch. "A special case," he repeated. Sloane's eyes flashed. "Yes." Gavin said, "I can." He said, "I'm allowed to be creative." The crowd murmured. I saw heads turning. I saw eyebrows lifting. Because even people who didn't know the full story could smell one thing: entitlement. Sloane pointed at Julian like he was the problem. "You're just a hired doctor," she said. "What right do you have to lecture me?" The words were hot and reckless. A slap in public. And I watched Julian's jaw tighten. Just slightly, like he was swallowing something sharp. Because Julian wasn't just a doctor. He was the doctor. The one families begged for. The one surgeons respected. The one who stayed late when everyone else was home. Sloane kept going, fueled by her own arrogance. "I'm going to call Gavin," she snapped. "I'm going to tell him to fire you." And I felt it. That bitter twist in my stomach. Because the way she said his name wasn't like an employee. It was like someone who believed she belonged in his life. Julian let out a short, humorless laugh. "Fire me," he said softly. "That's your threat?" Sloane scoffed. "I'm his wife," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And you're going to learn your place." My hands were still sticky from the coffee. My suit was ruined. My pride was being tested. But the real pain wasn't the stain. It was hearing my husband's name used like a weapon. Hearing it from her mouth. Like she owned him. Like she owned everything my father built. Julian turned slightly. Just enough to look at me. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second. A silent question. "Are you okay?" I nodded once. Because if I let my face show what was happening inside me, I wasn't sure I'd be able to stop. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. That slow, hard thud. The kind you get right before a storm. Sloane lifted her phone again. angling it so she could get my face and Julian's face in frame. "Guys," she said sweetly to her live stream, "look at these bullies. This lady assaulted me, and now this doctor is protecting her." Her smile was fake, but her eyes were real, mean, bright, hungry, and the crowd was watching. Not just in the lobby, online. Because that's how people like Sloane win. They don't win with truth. They win with attention. They win by controlling the story first. Julian stepped forward, voice firm. "Turn the camera off." Sloane laughed, "No." And she leaned closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You think you're powerful," she whispered. "You're not. My husband is the CEO. Who are you?" I stared at her .my, skin felt cold under the wet coffee fabric .m. My shoulders felt heavy. But my mind got clear. Because I realized something. This wasn't only about disrespect. This was about rot. And rot spreads. If you don't cut it out. I looked at Julian, then at Howard, then at the crowd, then at Sloane's phone. And I made a decision, not an emotional decision. A surgical one. I stepped closer to Sloane and kept my voice calm, almost gentle. "Fine," I said. "You want Gavin? Let's call him." Sloane's smirk froze. For 1 second, she looked uncertain. Because arrogance is loud, but it's not always confident. I took my phone out slowly, not dramatic. Just controlled. I checked the time. 10:06. Gavin should have been upstairs. INAV meeting. The kind he always loved. Where he could perform. Where he could act like the visionary husband CEO. I scrolled to his contact. And my stomach twisted at the name I used to smile at a pressed call. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. The lobby got quieter with each ring. Because everybody knows what a ring means. A decision is coming. Sloane's live stream went silent too, her audience sensing the tension. 4 rings. 5, and then click. Gavin's voice, low, rushed, fake tender. "Mara? Honey, I'm in the middle of a critical meeting. Government delegation. Investors. You landed? Why didn't you tell me?" I switched to speakerphone. Max volume. So everyone could hear, so nobody could twist it later. "So you're busy," I said. Gavin exhaled like he was irritated, but trying not to show it. "Yes." "Very." "What's wrong?" I looked directly at Sloane. I let my silence hang for 1 extra beat. Then I spoke. "You need to come to the lobby." There was a pause. A small one. But it was enough. "What?" "Mara, I can't just walk out. You need to come down," I repeated. Gavin tried to keep control. "Can this wait? I'll be home early. We'll talk. I'll make it up to you." His voice had that practiced softness.
The kind that used to calm me. But now, it sounded like a script. I took a slow breath. And my voice stayed calm. But the words turned to ice. "Come to the lobby," I said. "And see your new wife throwing coffee on me." Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Silence like someone just dropped a glass in a quiet room. I could almost picture him upstairs. Face draining. Hands stiff. Eyes darting. Trying to decide what lie would save him. And in that same moment, I saw Sloane's face change. She recognized his voice. Of course she did. She'd heard it in hotels. In late-night calls. In whispered promises. But why was he answering me like this? Why did he sound afraid? Why did he call me honey? Sloane's lips parted. Her phone trembled slightly. And I leaned into the microphone of my own speakerphone like a judge delivering a sentence. "You have 5 minutes," I said. If you're not here, my attorney will walk into that meeting with paperwork. Gavin's voice cracked. Mara, wait, what are you? I ended the call. Click. The sound felt loud in the lobby. Like a door shutting. Like a coffin closing. For a second, nobody moved. Air conditioning hummed. Announcements continued. But the people standing around us felt like statues. Sloane stared at me like her brain couldn't process reality. Her voice came out thin. Who are you? I looked at her. And I smiled again. Gentle. Terrifying. Keep recording, I said softly. Don't stop your livestream now. Let them see what happens when a lie meets the truth. Julian stepped closer to me, protective without touching. His presence was steady. Grounding. You sure about this? He asked under his breath. I didn't look away from Sloane. Yes, I whispered. Because if Gavin really did this, I want everyone to watch him choose. The elevator at the far end of the lobby dinged. The private executive elevator. The doors slid open. And there he was. Gavin Crown. He didn't walk out like a CEO. He stumbled out like a man running from fire. Tie crooked. Suit wrinkled. Sweat shining on his forehead. His eyes jumped from the crowd, to the phones, to Julian. Then landed on me. And the moment he saw my coffee-stained suit, something in his face collapsed. Fear. Pure fear. Sloane rushed toward him like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline. Baby, she cried, clinging to his arm. They attacked me. This woman assaulted me. And Julian is bullying me. Gavin's arm went stiff in her grip. He stared at her. And for a second, I saw it. Not love. Not desire. Hatred. Because he realized what she'd done. She didn't just expose an affair. She blew up his life in public. I crossed my arms. My suit still wet. My voice calm. Your wife is asking for justice, I said. Sloane shook his arm, desperate. Tell them who's in charge. Tell them to apologize. Gavin swallowed hard. His eyes flicked to the phones. Then to the watching staff. Then back to me. And he made the weakest choice a weak man can make. He chose survival. At any cost. He turned to Sloane. And his face twisted. Smack. The sound snapped through the lobby like a gunshot. He slapped her hard enough to knock her off balance. She stumbled and fell onto the marble. Her phone skidded away. Still filming. Still live. Sloane sat there, stunned, clutching her cheek. Her eyes wide like a child who just realized the fairy tale was a lie. You hit me, she whispered. Gavin shouted, voice cracking. Shut up. What the hell are you talking about? You're not my wife. I don't know you. You're crazy. The lobby gasped. The reversal was violent. Pathetic. And instantly, Gavin turned to me like a man begging a judge. Mara, honey, please. She's delusional. She's obsessed. I swear I don't know her. Sloane blinked up at him. And something broke in her expression. Because you can lie to the world. But you can't lie to the person who was in your bed. Her voice rose, sharp and desperate. You don't know me? Then who was in my bed last night? Who promised me a condo? Who bought me the car? Gavin lunged toward her, panicked. But Julian moved faster. He grabbed Gavin's shoulder and shoved him back. Enough, Julian said coldly. You're disgracing this hospital. And I stepped forward. Slowly. My heels clicked on marble like a verdict. I looked Gavin in the eye. All affection gone. All softness gone. My voice was quiet. But deadly. You said you don't know her, I said. So answer me this. Why does she have keycard access to the executive floor? Gavin froze. His mouth opened. No words. And why, I continued, did her account receive $1.8 million? From an ICU equipment procurement line item? The color drained from his face. Because cheating is scandal. But stealing hospital money? That's prison. And now the crowd wasn't whispering about coffee. They were whispering about crime. Gavin stammered, scrambling. Mara, I can explain. But explanations mean nothing when the truth is already printed. And at that exact moment, my attorney, Nina Cade, stepped through the crowd. Clean suit. Clear eyes. A thick file in her hands. She moved like someone who already knew the ending. She handed me the file without a word. I took it. And dropped it at Gavin's feet. Pages scattered across the floor like exposed bones. Bank statements. Vendor confirmations. Procurement requests. A trail of greed. I looked down at him. Read it, I said. Read what you've been doing while I was overseas keeping this hospital alive. Gavin's knees buckled. He dropped to the floor. Hands reaching. Begging. Mara, please, our kids. I pulled my leg away before he could touch me. And I turned to the crowd. My voice rose. Clear. Steady. Like a bell. My name is Mara Wells, I said. Chairwoman of Silvercrest Health. Gasp swept through the lobby. Howard's eyes filled with tears. Julian's posture straightened. Phones lifted higher. And Gavin's world shattered completely. Effective immediately, I said, Gavin Crown is terminated as CEO. For ethical violations and suspected felony embezzlement. For a moment the lobby was silent. Then security moved in. 2 guards. Firm hands. They lifted Gavin up. He didn't fight. He couldn't. His shoulders collapsed inward as they led him through the crowd. The man who loved cameras was walked out like a criminal. Sloane sat on the floor, trembling. Her livestream still running. Her followers still watching. Her dream still dying in real time. And I looked down at her, voice calm. You wanted to be powerful, I said quietly. Now you get to learn what power really costs. And Julian leaned close, his voice just for me. This is going to get uglier, he warned. I stared ahead, not blinking. I know, I said. Let it. Because I'm not hiding anymore. I'll continue with part 3 in the same level-friendly paced format, focusing on the aftermath, Sloane's termination, Gavin's first counterattack, and the PR smear setup that escalates the revenge arc. The second Gavin disappeared through those glass doors. The lobby didn't cheer. It didn't erupt. It just exhaled. Like the building itself had been holding its breath for years, and finally got air. But even as the crowd started to scatter, I felt it. That sharp, invisible shift. Because when you remove a powerful man publicly, you don't just remove him. You trigger everyone who benefited from him. The whispers didn't stop. They changed direction. Some people stared at me with awe. Some with fear. Some with calculation. And some with anger. Nina stepped close, her voice low. Security is escorting him to the administrative exit, she said. I already called our compliance team. Julian looked at my suit. You should change, he said softly. Cold coffee on skin, it can irritate. I almost laughed at the gentleness of that comment. Because everything inside me was burning. Not from coffee. From the realization that my marriage might have been a performance for years. I glanced at Howard. He was still standing near the entrance, hands shaking slightly. His eyes were wet, but his posture was straighter now. I walked to him. Took his hand gently. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," I said. Howard swallowed hard. "Ma'am," he whispered, voice cracked, "I didn't know." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. And I meant it. I turned to Nina. "Get Howard off his feet," I said. "Make sure he's okay. And make sure nobody touches him about this." Nina nodded immediately. Julian looked at me, a quiet respect in his eyes. And then I looked back at the corner. Sloane. Still on the floor. Still breathing fast. Her phone, somehow, still recording. She looked like a child who had been promised a crown. And just watched the kingdom burn. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered the words she used on Howard. The way she smiled while humiliating him. The way she threatened to blacklist families from healthcare. And the pity vanished. I walked toward her. Slow. Controlled. Sloane's eyes followed me like she was watching a predator. Her lipstick was smeared. Her lashes were clumped from tears. Her cheek was already swelling where Gavin hit her. And still. Even now. She tried to perform. She pushed herself up slightly and said, voice trembling but sharp. "He hit me. Like that was my problem. Like I should comfort her." I looked down at her. "You used my hospital lobby as your stage," I said. "You used fear to bully an elderly man. You used my husband's title to threaten people's lives." Sloane swallowed. "I didn't know," she whispered. I tilted my head slightly. "Didn't know what?" I asked. "That he was married?" She flinched. Her eyes flicked away. That silence answered me better than words ever could. Nina stepped forward, calm but lethal. "Ms. Carter," she said. "You are to surrender your badge and ID." Sloane's eyes widened. "No, wait." Nina didn't raise her voice. "That's not a request." Two security guards stepped closer. Sloane looked around at the crowd like she expected someone to save her. Like she expected Gavin to burst back in and defend her again. But Gavin was gone. And her audience wasn't clapping anymore. Sloane's voice turned desperate. "I'm an intern," she cried. "You can't just." Nina handed her a printed notice. "Gross misconduct," Nina read calmly. "Harassment. Violation of dress code. Unauthorized filming. Workplace disruption." Sloane's hand shook as she took the paper. Then her face twisted with panic. "What about my condo?" she blurted. And there it was. Not guilt. Not remorse. Fear about losing the prizes. My stomach tightened. Julian's eyes narrowed. Even he looked stunned by her priorities. I looked at Nina. "How fast can you place holds on assets connected to stolen funds?" I asked. Nina didn't blink. "Immediate," she said. I nodded once. "Do it." Sloane's mouth fell open. "You can't," she stammered. "I can," I said softly. "I built the system you thought you could hijack." The guards helped her to her feet. Not gently. Not cruelly. Just firmly. Like lifting a problem out of the way. Sloane started to cry again. But this time the tears were real. And she whispered, voice breaking. "He promised me everything." I leaned in slightly. "And what did you promise yourself?" I asked. "To be decent? To be kind? To respect the place where people come to survive?" Sloane couldn't answer. Because she'd never asked herself that question. The guards escorted her toward the exit. Her heels clicked. Fast. Unsteady. The lobby returned to its rhythm. As if a storm had passed through, and the building had decided to keep functioning anyway. But I knew. The storm wasn't over. It was just moving upstairs. Nina guided me toward a side corridor. We need to stabilize, she said. Board members are already calling. Media will hear about this within the hour. I nodded, jaw tight. Good, I said. Let them. Julian walked with us. His presence steady. Like he was silently holding the ground beneath my feet. We reached a private conference room. A small one. Glass walls. Quiet hum of ventilation. I sat down for the first time since landing. And my body finally reacted. My hands started to shake. Small. Uncontrolled. I pressed my palms flat on the table. Trying to stop them. Trying to remind myself that I was fine. That I was in control. But control doesn't erase betrayal. It just holds it in place so you don't collapse in public. Nina slid her laptop open. Gavin didn't just cheat, she said. He stole. He moved money from medical procurement to a shell company. And he paid a PR firm. My head lifted. A PR firm? I repeated. Nina nodded slowly. As of 2 hours ago, she said, a black PR firm received a large wire transfer. My throat went dry. How much? Nina looked at the screen. 400,000, she said. From an account we haven't frozen yet. Julian's expression sharpened. He's planning to control the narrative, he said. Nina nodded. Yes. And I felt something icy move through me. Because that's what men like Gavin do. When they lose power in reality, they try to win in story. They can't beat facts. So they weaponize perception. I leaned back. My spine pressed against the chair. And for a moment, I just stared at the ceiling. Because I realized something terrifying. Gavin wasn't going to accept defeat quietly. He wasn't going to fade away. He was going to punish me. He was going to try to make the world hate me. So I'd beg him to stop. Nina's voice cut through my thoughts. Mara, she said, we need to decide our next move. I looked at her. Then I looked at Julian. And I saw something in his face. Not romance. Not softness. Resolve. The same resolve I saw when he was doing CPR. The kind of resolve that says, this is life and death, and I will not flinch. My hands stopped shaking. Not because I felt calm. Because my brain clicked into strategy. We're not hiding, I said. Nina blinked. We're not disabling comments, I continued. We're not issuing a vague apology. We're not letting him paint me as a villain. Julian nodded slightly. Nina waited. I leaned forward. And my voice came out smooth. Cold. Clear. We go public, I said. Nina's fingers paused over the keyboard. You mean a statement? No, I said. A press conference. Nina's eyes widened. Julian's gaze lifted sharply. Tomorrow morning, I added. At Silvercrest. In the auditorium. Nina hesitated. Mara, if we do that, he'll escalate. I didn't look away. Let him, I said. Because once he escalates, he makes mistakes. Julian's voice was low. And you want him to make mistakes in front of witnesses? Yes, I said. Because the truth doesn't need makeup. It just needs a microphone. Nina nodded slowly. I'll arrange it, she said. Then she looked at me carefully. Are you okay? That question almost broke me. Because nobody had asked it yet. Not the board. Not the donors. Not the people who only cared about headlines. I opened my mouth to say yes. But instead, my voice came out quiet. Tired, I admitted. Julian stepped closer. He placed a bottle of water in front of me. No speeches. No pity. Just action. Like he always did. Drink, he said softly. You've been running on adrenaline. I took a sip. Cold water. A small anchor. And suddenly I remembered the flight. The warning in my chest. The quiet dread. My body knew. It knew before my mind did. Julian leaned down slightly, his voice gentle but firm. You did the right thing, he said. Your father would be proud. My eyes stung. I looked away quickly. Because crying in front of people is a luxury I haven't allowed myself in years. Nina closed her laptop. One more thing, she said. The board is going to meet. They'll try to pressure you. They'll talk about reputation. I laughed once. A short, bitter sound. Reputation, I repeated. They care about reputation more than lives. Julian's jaw tightened. You're not alone, he said. I'll speak to the medical board. Nina nodded. I'll handle legal, she said. And I sat there for a moment. Between two people who felt like pillars. Julian, steady. Nina, sharp. And me. Coffee-stained, betrayed, exhausted. But still standing. I stood up slowly. My suit clung to my skin. I felt disgusting. But my voice came out steady. Freeze everything, I said. Nina's eyes narrowed. Everything? Every joint asset, I replied. Every access point. Every card. Every account connected to procurement. Nina nodded. Done. I took a breath. And I felt the war begin. Not with yelling. Not with chaos. With paperwork. With strategy. With patience. Because the best revenge isn't emotional. It's inevitable. That night I went home. And the house felt colder than it should. Too quiet. Too large. Too full of furniture that suddenly looked like props. I walked through the hallway, still wearing the ruined suit. My steps sounded loud on the floor. I passed framed photos. Holidays. Smiles. And all I could think was, how many of these moments were real? Then I reached my children's door. I opened it slightly. Two small bodies asleep. Warm. Safe. Their faces peaceful. And something inside me hardened. Not into cruelty. Into purpose. Because Gavin could smear my name. He could buy bots. He could hire strangers to scream online. But he was not going to take my children. He was not going to take my father's legacy. And he was not going to take my future. I closed the door softly. And my phone buzzed again. A notification. Then another. Then another. I looked down. And my chest tightened. Because the headlines were already starting. A blurry clip. A twisted caption. Billionaire heiress attacks intern. The war had begun. And Gavin had chosen the battlefield. Now it was my turn to choose the ending. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Not because I felt rested. Because my body was bracing. Like it knew what was coming. I reached for my phone. And the screen lit up like a warning sign. Hundreds of notifications. News alerts. Trending tags. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I opened the first headline. And my stomach dropped. Billionaire heiress attacks intern. The second was worse. Hospital coup, CEO toppled by wife and doctor. The third felt like a knife. Insider claims, affair with chief of cardiology. I stared at the words. And for a moment, I just listened to the silence in my house. No kids' laughter yet. No morning music. Just the quiet hum of expensive air conditioning and the sound of my own heartbeat. Thud. 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 I clicked the video. It was Sloane's live stream. But it wasn't the live stream. It was a surgically edited version. They cut the part where she screamed at Howard. They cut the part where she threatened to blacklist families. They cut the moment she shoved into me. They cut the coffee pour. They cut the way she bragged about being the CEO's wife. They kept only my face, my posture, Julian standing close, Gavin on his knees. And the title on top said, "Rich Wife Destroys Husband in Public." I watched it once. Then again. Not because I wanted to. Because I needed to understand the weapon. And the comments were a flood. Not random opinions. Not messy human emotions. They were clean. Coordinated. Same phrases. Same insults. Same rhythm. She's cold. She's abusive. Rich women always ruin men. That doctor is her lover. Poor CEO. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Because I knew what this was. Not gossip. A campaign. A manufactured reality. Designed to make people feel like they saw the truth. While being fed a lie. My fingers tightened around the phone. And for the first time since the lobby, I felt a flash of panic. Real panic. Not fear for my name. Fear for my children. Because when the internet decides you're a villain, people don't just comment. They show up. They call schools. They send threats. They try to hurt you where you're soft. And mothers are always soft somewhere. My phone buzzed again. Nina. I answered instantly. Mara, she said, voice sharp. It's worse than we expected. How bad? I asked. Nina exhaled. He hired a black PR firm. They're pushing it to tabloids and influencer pages. And they're buying ad placements to keep it trending. I closed my eyes. Gavin, I whispered, tasting his name like poison. Nina continued. And the board is panicking. They want you to issue a soft apology. I laughed once. Not humor. A sound that came from disbelief. An apology, I repeated. For what? For being betrayed? For being robbed? For firing a man who stole hospital money? They want me to apologize because the internet is loud? Nina didn't respond. Because she knew. The board doesn't care about truth. The board cares about comfort. Their comfort. Their donations. Their stock value. Their dinner party conversations. My doorbell rang. I froze. A hard, instinctive freeze. It wasn't time for the kids to be up yet. And suddenly, the house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a target. I walked to the security screen. It was Nina. I let her in. She walked in with a laptop under her arm and a file in her hand. She looked like she hadn't slept. But her eyes were alive. Focused. Tell me we can stop this, I said. Nina shook her head. Not by hiding, she said. If we disable comments, they'll say it's guilt. If we stay silent, they'll fill the silence with their story. She opened her laptop and turned it to me. A map of accounts. Bot clusters. Repeated posting patterns. Paid placements. See this, she said. This is not a public reaction. This is purchased outrage. My throat felt tight. And the source? I asked. Nina tapped one line. Anonymized wire, she said. But we traced the path. It ties back to a shell company connected to the procurement account. My jaw clenched. So he was using stolen hospital money. To destroy my name. To destroy Julian's name. To destroy Silvercrest. Because if he couldn't have it, he wanted to burn it. I sat down slowly on the couch. My shoulders felt heavy. Like gravity had doubled overnight. And for a second, I wanted to cry. Not because I was weak. Because I was tired of being strong. Nina's voice softened. Mara, she said, this is the moment most people break. I looked up at her. And? I asked. Nina held my gaze. And you're not most people. I swallowed. Then I heard small feet. Soft footsteps. My daughter. She stepped into the hallway, rubbing her eyes. Mom, she murmured. Why are you awake? My chest tightened. I forced a smile. Hey, baby, I said gently. Go back to bed. I'll come tuck you in. She nodded sleepily and vanished. And as soon as she was gone, I felt something inside me shift. Because that child deserved a mother who didn't break. She deserved safety. She deserved stability. And Gavin was threatening that, for revenge. I turned to Nina. We're doing the press conference, I said. Nina nodded. I already booked the auditorium, she said. We invited major local networks. National outlets too. And yes, she added, the same tabloids running the lie. I stood up. My voice came out calm. We're not defensive, I said. We're not begging. We're not explaining like we're guilty. Nina's eyes narrowed. Then what are we doing? She asked. I walked to the kitchen counter, poured myself water, took a sip, and said. We're doing surgery. Nina paused. I met her gaze. We cut the tumor in public, I said. Cleanly. Precisely. And we let everyone watch it come out. Nina's mouth tightened. You're going to show the footage, she said. Yes, I replied. And the financial trail. And vendor confirmations. And procurement documents. Nina hesitated. Mara, if we go this hard, he'll try something else. I nodded. I know. Because men like Gavin don't stop. They switch tactics. They go lower. And I didn't want to think about how low he could go. But the truth was, I already knew. Nina opened the file she brought. Also, she said carefully, Gavin's lawyer filed an emergency motion. My stomach dipped. What kind? I asked. Nina placed the papers on the table. Custody petition. Temporary restraint order. Claims of emotional instability. Claims I was unsafe. Claims Julian was influencing decisions. My hands went cold. Because that's the ugliest move. When a man loses power, he tries to weaponize motherhood. He tries to take your children. And call it morality. For a moment, the room blurred. I could hear my own breathing. Sharp. Controlled. Too fast. And my mind flashed to my kids' faces sleeping. My daughter's sleepy voice. My son's laugh. And something inside me snapped. Not into rage. Into calculation. I looked at Nina. Freeze everything, I said. Nina blinked. Already started, she replied. No, I said. Everything. Every joint asset. Every transfer route. Every account he can touch. Nina's expression sharpened. Understood, she said. Then she leaned closer. And Mara, she added, we need to protect you physically too. I didn't like hearing that. Because the moment you need protection, it means the world has turned hostile. But I nodded. Do it, I said. Extra security. School pickup protocols. No unscheduled visitors. Nina typed quickly. Then she looked up. One more thing, she said. The board meeting is in an hour. They want you there. I laughed again. Bitter. They want to lecture me about optics, I said. Nina shrugged slightly. Probably, she said. But you need to control them too. She was right. Because the board wasn't my enemy. Until it was. And I knew exactly how this would go. They'd say, Mara, please be calm. Mara, be graceful. Mara, consider the donors. Mara, don't embarrass the institution. As if Gavin wasn't the one who embarrassed it. As if I was the problem for refusing to tolerate corruption. I set my glass down. And my voice came out low. We go to the board meeting, I said. But not to beg. To warn. Nina nodded. And the press conference? She asked. I stared at the edited headline still glowing on my phone. And I smiled. Not warm. Not friendly. The same smile Sloane triggered in the lobby. The smile that says, you picked the wrong woman. We'll be ready, I said. Because tomorrow morning. I'm not showing up to defend myself. I'm showing up to end his story. Nina exhaled. You sound calm, she said. I looked at her. I'm not calm, I admitted. I'm focused. And just then my phone buzzed again. A text message. Unknown number. One line. You think you won. Wait until the public sees who you really are. My stomach tightened. Nina's eyes flashed when she saw it. Gavin, she whispered. I didn't reply to the message. Because he wanted a reaction. And reactions are messy. I wanted something else. A clean ending. I deleted it. Then I looked at Nina and said. Tomorrow, we don't just fight back. We finish it. And somewhere deep inside me. Under the exhaustion. Under the betrayal. Under the fear for my children. A colder truth rose. Gavin had started a war with lies. So I was going to end it with proof. And the best part? Proof doesn't need anyone to believe it. It only needs to be seen. The boardroom at Silvercrest didn't feel like a room. It felt like a test. Glass walls. Cold lighting. Leather chairs that looked expensive enough to hide secrets. When I walked in, the conversation stopped mid-sentence. Not because they respected me. Because they didn't know what version of me was coming through that door. The polite chairwoman. Or the one who just fired a CEO in public. Cal Holt sat near the head of the table like he owned it. Gray suit. Smooth smile. Eyes like a calculator. Around him were the familiar faces. People who called my father sir with their mouths. And counted his money with their eyes. Nina walked beside me, calm and sharp. Julian didn't come in. He stayed with the medical staff, where he belonged. Where truth lived. As I sat down, Cal cleared his throat. Mara, he said gently, thank you for joining on short notice. His tone was soft. But there was a blade under it. We've all seen the headlines, he continued. And I think we can agree, this has become a crisis. I leaned back. Good, I said. Cal blinked. He wasn't expecting that. He tried again, smiling wider. What happened in the lobby, he said, was unfortunate. Unfortunate, I repeated, letting the word hang. A CEO stealing ICU funds is unfortunate? Cal's smile tightened. We aren't debating facts, he said quickly. We're discussing perception. Of course. Perception. The favorite word of cowards. A woman on the far side of the table, Donna Pierce, spoke up. Mara, she said, we're concerned about you. I looked at her. Concerned? I asked. Donna nodded with performative sincerity. This entire thing, she said, it looks emotional. I stared at her. And in my chest, something cold sharpened. Because I knew what she meant. Not emotional like human. Emotional like unstable. A label people love to pin on women when they refuse to be quiet. Cal leaned forward. We're recommending, he said, a controlled statement. A soft apology. He held up a hand like he was soothing a child. Not an admission, he clarified. Just, grace. Something like. He glanced at his notes. I regret the disturbance and I'm committed to transparency. I laughed once. A short sound. Then I stopped. And the silence became uncomfortable. Cal's eyes narrowed slightly. Mara, he said, this isn't about pride. I leaned forward, voice calm. You're right, I said. It's not about pride. It's about patience. And the money your CEO diverted was meant to keep them alive. Cal's jaw flexed. He tried to keep control. Let legal handle it, he said. Let authorities do their work. But right now, we must protect Silvercrest from reputational damage. I tapped the table gently. 1 tap. 2 taps. And the room watched like I was counting down. You mean, I said softly, you want me to protect the board's comfort? Cal's smile returned, thin. I want you to protect the institution, he replied. I held his gaze. You've been protecting yourselves for years, I said. The room stiffened. Donna's eyes widened. Cal's face hardened. That's an unfair accusation, he said. I nodded once. Then you won't mind an audit, I replied. The air changed instantly. Like oxygen disappeared. Cal's voice stayed even, but his eyes sharpened. An audit is extreme, he said. Especially during a crisis. I tilted my head. Funny, I said. Because I'd call theft during a crisis extreme. Cal inhaled slowly. He glanced at the others, then back at me. Mara, he said quietly, donors are calling. Officials are watching. If you go on stage tomorrow and turn this into a spectacle, it could cost us millions. I didn't blink. Good, I said. Cal's lips parted. I continued. If donors only support a hospital when corruption stays hidden, I don't want their money. A murmur rippled. Someone shifted in their chair. Donna spoke sharply. You can't talk like that, she snapped. This is business. I looked at her. No, I said, voice low. It's healthcare. And if you can't tell the difference, you shouldn't be in this room. Cal's voice dropped. Mara, he said, be careful. That was the first real moment. The threat disguised as advice. I leaned back. And I felt calm. Not because I wasn't furious. Because I finally understood the entire board dynamic. They weren't shocked Gavin stole. They were shocked he got caught publicly. And public exposure is the only thing that scares people who live behind doors. I set my phone on the table and slid it forward. One more thing, I said. Cal watched it like it might bite. I received a message, I continued. An anonymous threat. I didn't show them the number. I didn't need to. I wanted them to see one thing. That this wasn't going away. Cal's eyes flicked up. Mara, he began. I raised a hand. I'm not asking, I said. I'm informing. Tomorrow morning, I will hold the press conference. Silvercrest will hear the truth from me. And if any board member attempts to undermine that, I let my voice soften. Not kinder. Colder. I will treat you as part of the problem. Silence. Then Cal smiled again. But this time it wasn't friendly. It was controlled hostility. You're making enemies, he said. I nodded. Yes, I said. I am. And that's how I'll know who to remove next. Because good people don't fear transparency. I stood. Nina stood beside me. The board members watched, still, like their bodies didn't know how to react to a woman who refused to be handled. Cal spoke as I turned to leave. Mara, he said. If Gavin is innocent, and you destroy him publicly, history will remember you as ruthless. I paused at the door. And I looked back. My voice was quiet. History already remembers women as ruthless, I said. Even when we're just telling the truth. Then I walked out. In the hallway, Nina exhaled. That was intense, she said. I kept walking. They tried to make me apologize, I replied. Nina nodded. They're scared, she said. Good, I answered. Because fear makes people slip. Fear makes people reveal themselves. Fear makes men like Gavin send threats from burner numbers. And fear makes board members start protecting themselves by throwing others under the bus. Nina checked her phone. The press conference is set, she said. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I nodded. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't anonymous. It was Gavin's lawyer. A long email, formal language, false calm. It accused me of defamation. It threatened a lawsuit. And the last line made my stomach clench. We are prepared to pursue emergency custody and protective measures if Ms. Wells continues emotionally unstable conduct. I stared at it. And for a second, my breath caught. Because when someone threatens your children, logic turns to fire. Nina watched my face. He's bluffing, she said. Mostly. Mostly? I repeated. Nina's eyes narrowed. He's trying to scare you, she said. But we don't assume he won't try. I swallowed. Then I said the words that changed everything. Then we go harder. Nina blinked. Mara. I want the evidence ready, I said. All of it. Full footage. Financial trail. Vendor confirmations. And I want one more thing. Nina's eyebrows lifted. What? She asked. I looked out the window at the hospital entrance below. Ambulances arriving. Nurses moving. Real life continuing. I want his hypocrisy exposed, I said. Not just his theft. Nina hesitated. Mara, what are you thinking? I turned to her. People forgive cheating, I said. People argue about money. But if we show the public who he really is, a man who harms the vulnerable, they won't just dislike him. They'll reject him. Nina stared for a beat. Then she understood. You want moral collapse, she said quietly. I nodded. Exactly. Because I wasn't trying to win an argument. I was trying to protect a hospital. And you don't protect a hospital by letting a predator stay near it. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't pace either. I sat at my kitchen table with Nina's files open. Not because I liked pain. Because I needed certainty. Every document was a stitch. Every receipt was a weapon. And every minute I stayed awake was 1 minute closer to ending Gavin's story. At 4:30 a.m., I walked into my kids' rooms again. They slept peacefully. My daughter curled under her blanket. My son's mouth slightly open, breathing soft. I stood there and felt a tight ache in my chest. Because this wasn't just revenge. It was protection. I whispered into the darkness. I've got you. Then I closed the door. At 7 a.m., Nina arrived with a garment bag. Wear this, she said. Inside was a simple black dress. Conservative. Clean lines. No jewelry. No statement. The kind of outfit that doesn't distract from truth. I changed. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. No coffee stain now. But something else remained. A bruise you can't see. The bruise of betrayal. And as I stared at my reflection, I realized. The woman looking back wasn't the same woman who boarded that plane a month ago. That woman tried to keep peace. This woman was ready to win. At 8:45, we arrived at Silvercrest. The auditorium was already full. Reporters lined up, cameras pointed, lights blazing. The air smelled like heat and hunger. People don't come to press conferences for truth. They come for blood. But today, they were going to get something else. They were going to get proof. Nina leaned close. Once you step out, she said, there's no taking it back. I nodded. I'm not here to take it back, I said. I'm here to take it back from him. The curtains shifted slightly. I could hear the murmur of the crowd. The clicking of cameras. The impatient clearing of throats. And then, I heard footsteps. Steady. Measured. Julian. He stepped beside me in his white coat. Not for show. For support. He looked at me, voice low. You ready? He asked. I breathed in. Slow. Controlled. Then I whispered. Watch what they do when truth walks in. And together, we stepped toward the stage lights. The stage lights hit my eyes like heat. Cameras flashed so fast it felt like lightning. The auditorium wasn't a room anymore. It was a mouth. Hungry. Waiting to swallow someone whole. Reporters leaned forward, elbows on knees, ready to tear me apart for content. Tabloid bloggers sat near the front with phones raised like weapons. And I could feel it. The tension. The story they wanted had already been written. Billionaire wife snaps. Doctor lover coup. CEO victim. They came to watch me confirm it. I walked to the podium and placed my hands on either side. Not gripping. Just steady. Julian sat to my right in his white coat. Nina sat to my left with a folder and a laptop. Behind us, a large screen waited. Blank. Like a promise. I took one breath. Then I spoke. Good morning. My voice echoed cleanly through the speakers. My name is Mara Wells. I called this press conference for one reason. To protect the integrity of Silvercrest. A murmur ran through the crowd. I let it settle. Then continued. Over the last 24 hours, a heavily edited video has circulated online. It portrays me as an aggressor. It portrays Dr. Reyes as complicit. It portrays my former husband as a victim. I paused, looking directly into the cameras. That narrative is false. The first hand shot up immediately. A young reporter with sharp eyebrows and a sharper voice. Ms. Wells, he said, people online believe you fired your husband so you could install Dr. Reyes as CEO. Are you having an affair with him? A wave of whispers. That word. Affair. It always lands harder on a woman. As if competence can't exist without seduction. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the reporter. Then at the room. And I said calmly. You're asking about romance. While patients are in ICU beds. While money meant for ventilators was stolen. The reporter tried to push. So is that a yes or no? Julian's hand moved toward the microphone. He looked at me, silently asking permission. I nodded once. Julian stood. And when he stood, something shifted. Because he didn't look nervous. He looked like a surgeon before an incision. Focused. Unshaken. He spoke into the microphone. I'll answer that. The room went silent. Julian's eyes swept the auditorium. Dr. Julian Reyes, he said. Chief of Cardiology. He took a breath. Regarding Chairwoman Wells and myself. We are longtime colleagues. Trusted partners. And there is no illicit relationship. A murmur rose. Julian held up a hand, calm. But I will not hide one truth. That got the room back. Every camera leaned in. Julian's voice remained steady. I have respected Mara Wells for a very long time. Since we were young. And yes, I have cared about her quietly. In the way you care about someone you've watched carry weight no one else could hold. The auditorium felt like it stopped breathing. Julian continued. However, I have never crossed a boundary. Never leveraged that care. Never violated my ethics as a physician. He paused, his gaze turning harder. But I will not allow a thief to weaponize lies to destroy her. A stunned silence. Then a storm of clicking cameras. Whispers. Gasping. And suddenly the story shifted. Because Julian didn't sound like a lover. He sounded like a protector. A man willing to take heat to defend truth. Nina tapped her laptop. The large screen behind us lit up. Now, I said into the microphone, let's discuss what was edited out. I nodded to Nina. She played the uncut lobby footage. On the screen, Sloane appeared, screaming at Howard. You move like a turtle. How do you even work here? Then the video showed her live streaming. Then the shove. Then the coffee pour. Then the moment she whispered the threat. My husband is Gavin Crown. You'll be blacklisted. The auditorium erupted. Not cheering. Not laughing. Just shock. Because raw footage doesn't care about PR. It simply shows what happened. I waited for the noise to settle. Then I leaned into the mic. That is why Mr. Crown was called to the lobby. And that is why he was terminated. Hands shot up everywhere now. Another reporter stood. Ms. Wells, are you claiming embezzlement? I nodded. Yes. Nina clicked again. A slide appeared. A procurement request. A budget line. A bank transfer. A shell company. Vendor confirmation, payment not received. A second vendor confirmation. No equipment shipped. I spoke slowly, so every word landed. In the month I was overseas negotiating equipment contracts. Mr. Crown signed internal approvals for those same purchases. But vendors never received payment. The funds were diverted. A reporter shouted. Do you have proof he benefited personally? Nina tapped again. Another slide. A luxury condo lease. A down payment. A transfer. The dates aligned. The room murmured louder. I continued. Silvercrest is cooperating fully with authorities. All documentation has been provided. A tabloid blogger shouted from the front. People think you're using your power to ruin him because he cheated. I stared at her. Then I said quietly. I didn't ruin him. He ruined himself. By stealing money meant for patient care. The blogger scoffed. But he says you're abusive. That word again. Abusive. A simple, dirty label. It sticks in people's brains. I turned slightly and looked at Nina. Then I looked back at the room. Mr. Crown is welcome to testify under oath, I said. And he will. But there is one more truth. A pause. A beat. The room leaned forward. One more truth we held back yesterday, I said. Because I hoped he would accept accountability quietly. But he chose to attack. He chose to threaten my children. He chose to purchase lies. So he lost the privilege of privacy. I nodded to Julian. Julian stood again, holding a thin folder. He looked at the room and spoke carefully. This is not gossip, he said. This is relevant to character. And to the kind of man who was entrusted with a hospital. He held up one paper. A confirmed paternity result. The screen behind us switched. A redacted report. Dates. Identifiers blocked. But the conclusion visible. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The room erupted in gasps. Julian's voice stayed calm, but heavy. Gavin Crown is the biological father of a 3-year-old boy currently living in foster care. The air went thick. That's the kind of truth that doesn't just shock people. It changes them. Julian continued. The child's mother passed away. Mr. Crown abandoned the child. No support. No visits. No acknowledgement. Not even a birthday card. The room went dead quiet. A reporter's voice cracked. Is that confirmed? Julian nodded once. Yes. Verified through legal channels. And relevant because. He looked directly at the cameras. A man who abandons his own child has no right to claim moral victimhood. The silence that followed was different. Not tabloid hungry. Not entertainment. It was disgust. Public disgust. And that's the kind of emotion money can't buy back. I felt my throat tighten. Not with sadness for Gavin. With sadness for that child. Because somewhere out there, a little boy was growing up believing he wasn't wanted. Because his father chose ego over humanity. I leaned into the microphone, voice softer. Silvercrest has already arranged support for that child, I said. Because we don't punish children for the sins of adults. A murmur rose, respectful this time. Then the questions came like a wave. Will he be arrested? What happens to the hospital? Is Dr. Reyes really interim CEO? Are you divorcing him? I lifted my hand. And the room quieted. Yes, I said. Yes to all of it. Mr. Crown has been terminated. The hospital is stable. Dr. Reyes is interim CEO by emergency appointment. And yes, I have initiated divorce proceedings. Camera flashes erupted again. But now the flashes didn't feel like attack. They felt like documentation. Because the truth had turned the room. The script changed. The villain changed. I looked straight into the main camera, center row. And I spoke like I was speaking to every nurse, every patient family, every staff member who'd been bullied under Gavin. I will not allow corruption to hide behind charm, I said. I will not allow cruelty to hide behind titles. And I will not allow my father's legacy to become a toy for people who only care about power. The room was silent again. Then a reporter asked the question that mattered most. Ms. Wells, he said quietly, how are you holding up? For a second, my mask cracked. Because nobody had asked me that. Not the board. Not donors. Not the internet. Just one simple question. How are you holding up? I swallowed. Then I answered honestly. I'm tired, I said softly. But I'm not afraid. And I'm not going to stop. I nodded to Nina. She handed me a prepared statement. I didn't read it. I folded it and set it aside. Truth doesn't need a script, I said. This is the truth. And if anyone still wants to defend Gavin Crown, I let my gaze sweep the room. They can do it in a courtroom. Then I stepped back from the podium. Julian sat down slowly. Nina closed her laptop. And the room erupted, not into cheers, but into a roar of conversation. Because this time, they weren't debating whether I was a villain. They were trying to understand how deep Gavin's rot went. As we left the stage, Nina leaned close. You just crushed the campaign, she whispered. I didn't smile. Not yet. Because I knew something. When you strip a liar in public, they don't become humble. They become dangerous. And Gavin was now a man with nothing left to lose. Outside the auditorium, my phone buzzed. A new notification. Not from the news. From our security team. Alert, a man matching Gavin Crown's description attempted to enter the children's school office. My breath caught. Nina's face turned sharp. Julian's posture stiffened. And suddenly the press conference didn't feel like the climax. It felt like the trigger. Because Gavin wasn't done. He was moving to the one place he knew could hurt me. Where I was soft. Where I was human. Where I was a mother. And I whispered, voice low. Get me to my kids. My blood went cold. Not metaphorically. Physically. Like someone had poured ice down my spine. Gavin tried to enter my children's school. Nina was already moving, voice clipped and fast into her phone. This is Nina Cade, she said. Lockdown protocols. Confirm IDs. Notify local precinct. Julian stepped close, his voice low. Mara, he said, breathe. I didn't realize I had stopped. My chest was tight. My fingers numb. The press outside the auditorium was still buzzing, still hungry. But in my world, nothing existed except two small faces in a classroom. And a man who had proven he would do anything to punish me. We moved through the side corridor to avoid cameras. Nina's security team met us at the private exit. Two men in plain suits. Earpieces. Calm hands. Car is ready, one said. We got in. The door shut. And the sound felt like a seal. The driver pulled away. Manhattan blurred outside the tinted windows. I stared at my phone. Every second felt too long. Nina's voice was steady but hard. He didn't get inside, she said. School office stopped him at the front. Julian's jaw clenched. What did he say? He asked. Nina looked at her screen. He claimed he had urgent family business and he's their father. A sick sound escaped my throat. He's their father, I said quietly. And that's why he knows exactly how to hurt me. The car took a sharp turn. My mind flashed to the custody motion. The emergency filings. The words he used. Emotionally unstable. Unsafe. Influenced by a doctor. That wasn't a random legal strategy. It was a setup. He wanted the public to see me as cold. And the court to see me as unstable. He wanted to tear me down in two directions at once. Julian's voice was controlled. This is escalation, he said. Desperation, Nina corrected. And desperation makes people sloppy. I looked out the window. Sloppy men still get women killed, I said. Nina didn't argue. Because she knew I wasn't being dramatic. This wasn't a movie. This was the real world. Where anger mixed with entitlement becomes a weapon. We reached the school. A quiet private building with clean white walls and a small playground. Normally, seeing it would calm me. Today it felt exposed. Like a soft target in a hard city. A police cruiser sat near the curb. Two officers spoke to the school administrator. The administrator's face was pale. Nina got out first. Showed credentials. Spoke quickly. Then waved us in. I walked into the lobby. My heels sounded too loud. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw me, recognition from the news. A mother with a scandal attached to her name. I hated that. I hated that my children's world had been touched by his mess. The principal approached, hands trembling slightly. Ms. Wells, she said, we're so sorry. Where is he? I asked. She swallowed. Outside, she said. He refused to leave until police arrived. I turned toward the glass doors. And there he was. Gavin Crown. Standing on the sidewalk like he still belonged to my life. Like he wasn't a man exposed on national news less than an hour ago. His hair was messy. His eyes were bloodshot. His suit looked like it slept on him. And yet, he still had that instinct. That performer's stance. Shoulders back. Chin up. Like he was still the CEO. The officers approached him. He argued. I couldn't hear the words through the glass. But I could read the body language. He wasn't pleading. He was demanding. Then he saw me. His head snapped up. For a moment, his face twisted with something ugly. Not regret. Resentment. Then he smiled. A slow, poisonous smile. Like he was happy to see me scared. Nina stepped in front of me instinctively. Julian shifted closer, protective. I pushed past them slightly and walked to the doors. The principal's voice shook. Please, you don't have to speak to him. But I did. Because if I didn't face him now, he'd keep showing up. He'd keep testing boundaries. And boundaries with men like Gavin only hold when you enforce them. I stepped outside. The summer air hit my face. Hot. Thick. Smelling like exhaust and cut grass. Gavin took one step toward me. The officers blocked him immediately. Sir, one said, stay back. Gavin lifted his hands like he was innocent. I just want to see my kids, he said loudly. He made sure the words carried. For the people walking by. For anyone holding a phone. He was building a scene. Even here. I stared at him. And I felt something strange. Not fear. Not love. A cold emptiness. Like he was a stranger wearing my husband's face. You don't get to use them, I said quietly. Gavin's smile tightened. Use them, he repeated. Mara, they're my children too. He turned his head toward the school entrance, voice rising. My wife is having a breakdown, he announced to nobody and everybody. She fired me because she's unstable. She's being influenced by that doctor. Julian's posture stiffened. Nina's eyes flashed. And I realized what Gavin was doing. He wasn't here for the kids. He was here to plant a story. A story for court. A story for cameras. A story that says, I am the calm father, and she is the dangerous mother. He looked back at me, eyes sharp. You think you won, he murmured, voice low enough only I could hear. You have no idea what losing looks like. The officer warned him again. Sir, step back. Gavin ignored him. He leaned forward, voice dropping. You humiliated me, he hissed. You ruined my name. And now, I'm going to take what you love. My hands clenched. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. But my voice stayed steady. You're threatening me in front of police, I said softly. Gavin's eyes flicked to the officers. He smirked. I'm a father, he said louder, changing tone instantly. I'm worried about my kids. Such a perfect liar. He could switch faces like masks. I turned to the officer. I want this documented, I said. He's filed emergency custody and he's here trying to intimidate me. The officer nodded and wrote. Gavin's smirk faltered slightly. Then he did something I didn't expect. He stepped back, lifted his chin, and said. Fine. Document this. I want full custody. Because you're going to prison. My stomach dropped. What? I whispered. Gavin's smile returned. You think embezzlement was my only move? He said softly. Then he looked at Nina, then Julian. You've got 3 days, he said. Or every outlet in the city gets what I have. Nina's voice was sharp. What are you talking about? She snapped. Gavin's eyes glittered. A little story, he said. A little evidence. A little scandal. He leaned closer, voice a whisper. I know things about your father's legacy, Mara. Things your precious board kept quiet. You cut me out. So I'll cut the whole hospital open. Julian's voice came out low. You're bluffing, he said. Gavin laughed. Am I? He replied. He took a step back, raised his hands again like a harmless man. Then he looked at the officers. I'll leave, he said loudly. But I'll be back, with my lawyer. He turned to me one last time, and his eyes were pure venom. "This is just the beginning," he mouthed. Then he walked away. The officers watched him go. One approached me. "Ma'am," he said gently, "we can file a report and request a restraining order." Nina stepped in. "We're already doing that," she said. I stood still, watching Gavin disappear around the corner. My knees felt weak. Not because I was afraid of him physically. Because he had just declared war on the one thing that mattered more than the hospital. My children. Julian touched my elbow lightly. "Let's get them," he said. We went inside. The principal led us down a hallway filled with children's artwork. Bright colors. Handprints. Innocence. It felt like walking through a world Gavin had no right to touch. My daughter ran to me first. "Mom," she cried, hugging my legs. My son followed, smaller, quieter, eyes confused. "What's happening?" he asked. I knelt. Pulled them close. And forced my voice to be warm. "Nothing you need to worry about," I said. "Just a grown-up problem." Their arms wrapped around me. And I almost broke. Because holding them made everything real. It wasn't about headlines. It wasn't about board meetings. It was about protecting these two lives. We got them into the car. Nina sat up front with the driver, already making calls. Julian sat beside me in the back, quiet, steady. My daughter leaned against my shoulder. My son held my hand. And as the car pulled away, I stared at the street outside. My mind replayed Gavin's words. "You're going to prison." What did he mean? What could he possibly have? Nina turned around from the front seat, her voice controlled but urgent. "Mara," she said, "we need to assume he's planning a counterattack." Julian's eyes narrowed. "With what?" he asked. Nina hesitated. Then she spoke. "The board." My throat tightened. Because suddenly it clicked. Gavin didn't just steal money. He didn't just cheat. He didn't just hire PR. He had relationships. Connections. Board allies. People who would rather destroy me than expose their own dirt. And Gavin just threatened to expose things about my father's legacy. That wasn't random. That was leverage. Nina's voice dropped. "Cal Holt," she said. "He hasn't answered my calls since the press conference." Julian looked out the window. "He's choosing sides," he murmured. I stared down at my children. Their soft hair. Their small fingers. Their trust. And something inside me hardened again. Not into cruelty. Into clarity. "If Gavin wants to cut the hospital open," I said quietly, "then we'll open it ourselves." Nina blinked. Julian turned. I continued. "We'll do an independent audit," I said. "Full transparency. Every account. Every contract. Every board member's fingerprints. Because if there's dirt, we don't hide it. We remove it." Julian nodded slowly. "That's how you stop blackmail," he said. "By making secrets useless." I nodded. "Yes." And then I looked at Nina. "We need one more piece," I said. "What?" Nina asked. I leaned forward, voice low. "If Gavin is threatening prison," I said, "he's either bluffing. Or he planted something." Nina's face tightened. Julian's eyes sharpened. "Planted?" Julian repeated. I swallowed. "Yes," I said. "He stole money. He falsified records. He knows systems. He knows how to frame people. And the first thing he tried was to paint me unstable. So the next thing would be to make me look criminal." The car turned. We passed the hospital again. Silvercrest's glass walls reflecting the sun like nothing inside could be rotten. But I knew better now. Rot isn't always loud. Sometimes it sits in board seats. Sometimes it signs contracts. Sometimes it wears a wedding ring. Nina's phone buzzed. She read a message, then looked back at me. Mara, she said quietly. The DA's office just called. My heartbeat spiked. What? I asked. Nina inhaled. They received an anonymous tip, she said. Claiming you authorized the procurement transfers. Silence. Julian's head snapped up. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. Nina's voice went colder. They're opening an investigation. And in that moment, I understood exactly what Gavin meant. He wasn't just trying to hurt my reputation. He was trying to take my freedom. And suddenly, the press conference wasn't the turning point. It was the match. And Gavin had just poured gasoline. I looked out the window, jaw tight. Okay, I whispered. Now we stop playing defense. Nina turned fully in her seat. What's the plan? She asked. I stared at my reflection in the glass. The mother. The chairwoman. The woman everyone was watching. And I said. We find the source of that tip. And we rip the entire network out. Because if he wants to frame me, he's going to learn what happens when the woman he underestimated stops being polite. The moment Nina said the DA received a tip claiming I authorized the transfers, my first instinct wasn't anger. It was clarity. Because that wasn't random. That wasn't an accident. That was a move. A calculated move designed to do three things at once. 1. Freeze me emotionally. 2. Shake donor confidence. 3. Make me look guilty before I even spoke. Gavin wanted the world to believe. If she's being investigated, maybe she's the real criminal. And the sickest part? People love a both sides are bad story. It makes them feel smart. It lets them enjoy chaos without choosing morality. I looked down at my kids. My daughter was already half asleep again. My son stared out the window quietly, confused but trusting. I swallowed the panic down. Not for me. For them. Then I looked at Nina. Call the DA back, I said. Nina blinked. Mara. Right now, I repeated. Nina put the phone to her ear. Julian's voice was low, controlled. Don't react, he warned. Respond. I nodded once. Nina spoke for 30 seconds. Then handed the phone to me. I didn't try to sound sweet. I didn't try to sound scared. I sounded like what I was. The person who built this institution. Assistant District Attorney Chen, I said, calm. This is Mara Wells. Silence on the line. Then a careful voice. Ms. Wells, yes. I understand you received an anonymous tip claiming I authorized the procurement transfers, I said. Yes, the ADA replied. Good, I said simply. Because you're going to receive a full independent audit request from my office within the hour. A pause. You're requesting an audit? He asked. Yes, I said. Not resisting. Inviting. I want every transaction examined. Every approval trail. Every login. Every access point. Another pause. The ADA's tone shifted. Most people don't ask for that, he said. I almost smiled. I'm not most people, I replied. And I'm not guilty. Then I added, quietly. And whoever filed that tip is either desperate or stupid. I heard him exhale. Understood, he said. We will cooperate. Good, I said. I'll have my counsel send everything. And I request immediate preservation of digital logs. When I ended the call, Nina stared at me like she'd never seen someone run toward fire. Julian nodded once. That was the right move, he said. Now the tip becomes a trail, Nina added. And that was the point. Because lies are loud. But logs are quiet. And logs don't care about charisma. That night, I didn't go home. Not really. I went to the place that mattered. Silvercrest. I had security escort my kids to my sister's home with full protection. Then I walked into the hospital like I was walking into battle. The building felt different. Not because the walls changed. Because I changed. I went straight to IT. Not with drama. With purpose. Pull access logs, Nina ordered. Executive suite. Procurement system. Keycard entries. VPN connections. The IT director looked nervous. Then looked at me. Then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Julian stood beside me, arms crossed. Steady. Present. And for the first time, the staff looked at me like, she's not going to let this rot win. Hours passed. Screens glowed. Data scrolled. Nina's team worked like surgeons. And then, at 2:17 a.m., we found it. The anonymous tip wasn't anonymous in the way Gavin hoped. It was routed through a burner email. Sent from a public Wi-Fi network. But the device left a fingerprint. A MAC address tied to an executive laptop. A laptop assigned to one person. Cal Holt. My boardroom protector. My father's old friend. The man who told me to apologize. The man who warned me about enemies. Nina's eyes lifted slowly from the screen. Cal, she whispered. Julian's jaw tightened. I knew he was wrong, he said quietly. But I didn't think he'd go this far. I didn't speak at first. Because betrayal from a husband hurts. But betrayal from a guardian? That hits a different part of your soul. The part that says, how long were you smiling at me while sharpening the knife? Nina's voice was cold. We need to move fast, she said. Before he deletes anything. I nodded. Call an emergency board meeting, I said. Nina blinked. At 2 a.m., she asked. Yes, I said. Because if he wants to play dirty, he's going to do it while people are sleeping. Nina smiled slightly. A dangerous smile. Understood. By 7:30 a.m., the boardroom was full again. Faces stiff. Coffee cups untouched. Eyes darting. Cal sat at the same seat, calm as ever. Like he hadn't just tried to send me to prison. He smiled when I walked in. Mara, he said smoothly, I assume this is about the investigation. I didn't sit down. I placed a printed packet on the table. Hard. The sound echoed. Cal's smile faltered. What's this? He asked. Nina spoke, voice precise. Digital access logs, she said. Device identifiers. Email routing. VPN fingerprint. And the matching signature of your executive laptop. Cal blinked once. Slow. Like his brain was trying to pretend reality wasn't happening. That's ridiculous, he said. I have no idea what you're talking about. Julian finally spoke. Quiet. Sharp. Cal, he said, you're not stupid. Don't insult us. Cal's eyes flashed with anger. Then he switched tactics. He leaned back and said calmly. Mara, you're under stress. This is paranoia. That's exactly what Gavin has been telling the DA, Nina replied. Cal's eyes cut to Nina. And who are you to speak? Cal snapped. A lawyer who wants power. Nina didn't flinch. I'm the lawyer, she said, who just caught you committing obstruction. The room went dead silent. Donna Pierce's face turned pale. Another board member whispered, Cal, what did you do? Cal stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt, he said. You can't just accuse me based on technical nonsense. I finally spoke. My voice was calm. Almost gentle. Cal, I said, you didn't do it to protect the hospital. You did it to protect yourself. Because if Gavin goes down, he takes whoever helped him with him. Cal's jaw tightened. I continued. And you chose the wrong woman to intimidate. Nina clicked her remote. The screen behind us lit up with more evidence. Not just the tip. Payments. Consulting fees. Board member advisory stipends. A shell structure linking Cal to Gavin's offshore routes. Cal's face drained. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. Because he knew. It was over. I looked around the room at the other board members. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Cal Holt is suspended immediately. His voting privileges are revoked. His access to all systems is terminated. And I'm notifying the DA that the anonymous tip came from an internal actor attempting to frame me. Cal's voice cracked. You can't. Yes, I said. I can. And I will. Security entered quietly. Not dramatic. Just firm. Cal's shoulders sagged as they guided him out. And in that moment, something deeper happened. The board members realized. The era of hidden rot was ending. Because I wasn't just cutting out Gavin. I was cutting out everyone who fed him. Outside that boardroom, the legal and criminal machinery moved fast. The DA's office shifted focus. The investigation stopped hovering over my head. And moved like a spotlight toward Gavin. His accounts froze. His shell companies cracked open. And once the fear of exposure hit him, Gavin did what desperate men do. He ran to the only thing he thought he could still control. Sloane. Because in his mind, she wasn't a person. She was a storage unit for stolen luxury. A place to reclaim what he thought he deserved. 2 nights later, a police report hit Nina's desk. Domestic dispute, she read. At a luxury high-rise. I didn't need her to say the address. I knew. Sloane's condo. The one bought with stolen money. The one now under lien and seizure. Nina read aloud. Male suspect arrived intoxicated, demanded property and valuables. Female occupant refused. Altercation escalated. Neighbors called 911. Julian exhaled slowly. Did anyone get hurt? He asked. Nina shook her head. Bruises, she said. Property damage. Both arrested for assault and disorderly conduct. I didn't feel joy. Not the kind people think revenge gives. I felt a quiet, heavy pity. Because this is what greed produces. Not romance. Not glamour. Not power. Just 2 people clawing at each other over stolen scraps. The next day, photos leaked. Gavin in handcuffs. Face puffy. Tie missing. Sloane beside him, mascara smeared, mouth twisted in rage. The headline read. Disgraced CEO arrested after brawl with mistress. And the internet, finally turned. Not bots. Real people. Disgusted people. The kind of disgust that doesn't fade in 24 hours. The kind that sticks. Then came court. Divorce court. Custody court. Criminal court. The kind of rooms where charm doesn't help. Where truth sits in binders and timestamps. Gavin sat across from me looking smaller than I remembered. His hair unkempt. His hands shaking slightly. No more CEO glow. Just a man facing consequences. His public defender glanced at the evidence and didn't even try to fight. Because how do you fight a timeline? How do you argue with bank transfers? How do you deny video footage? You don't. You collapse. The judge spoke calmly. But each word landed like stone. Mr. Crown, she said, you have violated ethical standards and legal obligations. You have endangered patient care. You have engaged in fraud. You have attempted retaliatory intimidation. Gavin's eyes flicked toward me. For the first time, I saw something that looked like fear without arrogance. Maybe even regret. But regret without responsibility is just self-pity. The judge granted me full custody. The gavel hit. And something inside me unclenched. Not happiness. Relief. A breath I didn't know I'd been holding. As Gavin was escorted out, he whispered as he passed me. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. Not because I needed revenge. Because his words didn't have weight anymore. An apology doesn't heal what betrayal breaks. A month later, in criminal court, Gavin pleaded guilty. No grand speech. No performance. Just surrender. He was sentenced. Years. Real time. Real consequence. The kind of sentence that strips a man of illusion. Sloane took a plea deal as a recipient of stolen funds. Her internship was long gone. Her influencer career collapsed. Her luxury world evaporated. The condo was seized. The car reclaimed. The bags sold as evidence. And life did what it always does. It reduced fantasy to reality. Silvercrest stabilized. Julian was appointed permanent CEO by unanimous medical board support and emergency ratification. Not because he wanted power, but because he deserved trust. He implemented reforms. Transparent procurement. Whistleblower protection. Dress code enforcement. A culture shift. The hospital started to feel like my father again. Clean. Focused. Human. And 1 year later, on a crisp autumn evening, Julian asked me to meet him at a quiet restaurant overlooking the river. No cameras. No headlines. No spectacle. Just warm light and calm. After dinner, he slid a small box across the table. I opened it. It wasn't a diamond. It was a crystal heart. Intricately detailed. Clear. Light-catching. My breath caught. Julian's voice was gentle. I've spent my life studying hearts, he said. And the one heart I never fully understood was yours. He smiled softly. This isn't a ring, he said. It's a promise. A promise that I'm not here to own you. I'm here to care for you. In the way you've cared for everyone else. He paused, eyes steady. If you ever want to build something new, I want to build it with you. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. Not tears of pain. Tears of release. Because when someone stands beside you during war, and still speaks gently afterward, you finally understand what safety feels like. I nodded. Yes, I whispered. But only if you promise. This treatment plan lasts a lifetime. Julian laughed softly. It's a lifetime plan, he said. 5 years later, we cut the ribbon for the new Silvercrest wing. Not named after me. Named after the mission. Because ego wasn't the point anymore. Healing was. My children ran ahead in the hospital garden, laughing. Julian walked beside me. Nina was there too, still sharp, still loyal, now on our ethics oversight committee. Howard Briggs waved at us from the entrance, smiling like a man who finally felt respected again. And as we passed the side gate, I saw him. Across the street. A man in plain clothes. Older. Thinner. Hair almost entirely gray. Standing alone like a ghost of a life he threw away. Gavin. He wasn't in handcuffs now. He wasn't on magazine covers. He wasn't a CEO. He was just a man watching. His eyes held something hollow. Regret, maybe. Loss. A quiet ache. Julian squeezed my hand. Do you want to talk to him? He asked softly. I watched Gavin for a long moment. And I realized something surprising. I didn't hate him anymore. Hatred is heavy. And I had carried enough. What I felt was something else. Pity. Not the kind that excuses. The kind that says, you did this to yourself. I shook my head. No, I said. We're going home. Julian nodded. My kids ran back toward us. Mom, my daughter shouted. We're hungry. I smiled. Then let's go, I said. And without looking back, I walked toward the warm setting sun with my family's hands in mine. Because that's the truth people don't like to admit. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's freedom. It's peace. It's rebuilding so completely that the people who tried to break you can only watch from a distance and realize they can't touch you anymore. And that day in the lobby, when coffee soaked into my suit, wasn't the day I lost everything. It was the day I stopped carrying dead weight and started carrying only what mattered. My children. My mission. My future. If this story hit you anywhere deep, if you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or disrespected, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying karma you've ever witnessed? Because some stories aren't just entertainment. They're reminders. That truth doesn't need permission. And justice always finds a way.